In this episode of Free Range Sailing, we start the journey against the trade winds down to Cairns, some 600 nautical miles south. We say goodbye to Badu, and it's back to business as usual, with plenty of sailing, fishing and shark feeding. We'll also show you our method for cleaning a haul of squid and the Hitachi technique for draining coconuts. It's been a while since we visited Cairns Reef and gave Marul's bum a bit of a clean. And we've just anchored up in the shallows here out the back of Badu, and Troy's going to jump in and clean the prop and maybe even the bum as well. It's clear enough. The water's not that clear, so we'll show you.
Have a look, it's a bit of a stunt park.
It's a bit of a stunt park right on the beach. It's high tide and we're right at the beach.
Yeah, running along shore, there's a big dirty water line, but close in here we saw the other day when we were visiting that it's quite clear. So I've come, there's about half a metre under the keel and it's nice and clear, so go and give a bit of a scratch. If you're wondering why we're so fixated on clear water, it's because Badu Island has crocodiles. Well, I thought for our next sailing trip we might fill up these water bottles with coconut water. So rather than just start swinging the machete around, we're not just a one-trick pony around here. We've got power drill, coconut. So it still makes a little mess, but it's not a big mess. Yeah, throw that in the funnel. Put an air hole in there.
That's the good coconuts as well.
These are delicious, aren't they?
These are like the Malaysian yellow ones.
Yep.
They're my favourites.
They are really, really good. And the meat in them at the moment is nice and soft because they're still quite young. So
getting through it with the drill is not too tricky.
Not at all. So I think, yeah, just when they've gone from green to this yellow, they've just gone yellow, that's when they're at their most fizzy. You know, that's when they're really great.
Delicious.
It's pretty good, isn't it? Lots of electrolytes there.
Yeah, it's fizzy. It's nice. With everything wrapped up, we left Badu Island and started our journey south. Just a casual 25 knots out here, 30?
25 knots. We've timed the tide pretty well so it's not standing up too bad. So right at the end of the Grotesque. But yeah, 25 knots gusting 30. I've had to use 2 fingers on the tiller now. But we're hard to weather.
Tacking down.
Yeah, we're trying to get between reefs actually. So I've had to do a lot of tacking to weave our way through. I can see them with my Polaroids, it's alright.
making good time, but we've become accustomed now to having to work with the tides, and sometimes that means having to put the anchor in, hurry up and wait.
This is a pretty typical breakfast aboard Marul. Oats and fruit served with our homemade yogurt.
Well, it might not hold for Pascal and I, but Marul likes to go to weather. Okay, she's pretty conservatively designed, and while the cockpit's not particularly large or comfortable, it is quite dry. All right, these Clansmans are a pretty dry boat. Not much, a lot of water's going over the front deck. Hardly any of it is making it actually into the cockpit, so that's a really good thing. We're not on electronic steering anymore. Okay, I've disengaged that. Put the airfoil back up, so we're going wind powered, and we're making about 4.5 to 5 knots, okay, to weather, which that's not too bad. All right, usually I'm happy with about 4.7. That's a nice balance of pointing high and getting some speed. I have laid her off a little bit just so it's not such a pounding ride, although Marul doesn't pound. Pascal reckons she caresses the waves, but we never get that jarring, thudding, smashing into the things. Yeah, so we should make Adolphus Islands by this afternoon. We'll see how we go. We're really making better pace than I imagined today, so we might even go as far as Cagar Reef again, where we cleaned our bum in that episode. But and we do need fish. So the sooner we get to the outer reef and we can start catching mackerel and get our spear guns out again, the better. All right, because apart from gnawing on a bit of biltong that we made with Raffy there, we're vegetarians at the moment, so it's rough. In a bit of trouble. Alright, now I know that going to weather's not supposed to be fun, but I'm having a ball. We've just run Marul a little bit freer, so she's going 55 to 65 degrees, wind apparent on the starboard side. We're doing 6.5 knots. The sea's about 1 metre, which is nothing, and yeah, we're just charging out. So I couldn't be happier now. We're just crashing along through the gap between Adolphus and Little Adolphus, and we're going to head on out to Cagar Reef again. Now another point I just want to make, you've seen me sort of steering Marul with just one finger on the tiller. Now the autopilot's doing it at the moment, but you can see that even though we're heavy to weather, I have detuned the main a little bit, alright? But that rudder is pretty central. And what that means, like every time you have to steer a boat, well anywhere really, that rudder's going to introduce friction into the system. So the better that you can arrange it, the better you can balance your boat and it points, and you don't have to put too much inputs on the tiller, you might just pick up a little bit of more speed. And that's important to us at the moment because we've got a fair bit of growth on the bottom. And yeah, the boat's really performing well. So just put a little bit of time into balancing your rig. Wheels became very popular on yachts because it sort of eliminates that a bit. There's a lot of mechanical advantage, and you can sort of just hang onto a wheel, and you can fight if your boat's a bit out of balance. That's not so much with a tiller. But it's really, if you're new to sailing, just try and work on getting your rig balanced, and your yacht will perform a lot better. we pulled in behind Cagar Reef again, and just got a little bit of an afternoon storm. It's not quite gale force, you know. It's probably just pulling up around 30 knots, but we're definitely having a few gusts coming in that are almost touching 40. So the wind generator's putting a pretty steady 10 amps in at the moment, and it's been doing that for the last 3 hours. So yeah, topping our batteries off pretty nicely. The tide's come up a little bit, so it's a little bit of a rough anchorage, but not too bad. Might be leftovers and then movie and a popcorn, I think. But I will be getting up later in the night and just checking our anchoring. It's not really great for a solid night's sleep, this sort of thing. Well, we're fairly happy we're not sailing in that.
We're headed for the outer reef. You got pretty strong winds, maybe 20, 25 knots. We're all doing okay.
We're making about 10 degrees leeway, so off 125 degrees wind, we can steer 85 degrees, but we're making 75 degrees over the ground, so we're actually being pushed 10 degrees.
Well, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it ends up that we're just like, we can only point 55. We can point really close.
Yeah.
Like within 45 degrees, you know, like we can point and still be making 5 knots, but we're getting pushed with this leeway with this swell coming in off the outer.
We've put the small wind vane up because the winds are strong enough to steer us with that little guy. And it's working out quite good. She steers better with that wind vane than with the electronic thing.
Well, the wind vane's instant.
Yeah. Reactionary to the gusts and everything. First, baby. We anchored at a small islet for a much needed break and to stretch our legs. I'm not sure the local wildlife was that thrilled when we showed up.
Often you find patches of sandstone on these cays. Over time, pressure and chemical reactions glue the sand together into the rock, and then storms and wave action act to expose it at a later date.
Ever since we left Western Australia, plastic waste and fishing gear, a lot of it from Asia, has been a common feature on the beaches and islands. These are blue bottle jellyfish blown ashore by the onset of the trade winds.
Wind trapped them all. They don't sting anymore either.
Nah.
The cells are dead. Alright, last night we got us a whole bunch of arrow squid. Okay? These long, skinny squid like that. We're not so fixated on eating them as rings, so we're just going the easy gutting method. And all I'm going to do is run a knife up the belly surface. Okay? A squid's got a dorsal surface, so if you look at that, see where that pointy bit is there and all the colour? That's his back.
all right, his dorsal surface, if you like. We're going to flip over and show his belly. And just like anything really, just a very shallow cut straight up the belly. Try not to nick the ink sac. Then we can just open him out like that, grab it by the head. The ink sac is still in there and it's not dribbling black ink all over the boat. And then a cut just below the eyes. And that's all just the nasty bits. So we can save that for bait, or we can get the local fish excited as we go, because when I'm finished here, I'm just going to throw a hook over. In the middle of the tentacles, there's a little ball, and that's the squid's beak, like a parrot beak in there. If you get bitten by a squid, it hurts, and it's sort of a little bit horrifying to have something grabbing onto you and biting you with a parrot's beak. But that, it goes over to the fish. Those tentacles, they're really tasty. They've still got the skin on them, so if you threw that in for deep frying, they'd probably pop and snap and throw oil everywhere, which Pascal knows about. So there's our squid, okay, there's the other side. So it's got a plastic quill just here, and I'm going to be really clumsy now because Pascal's pointing a camera at me. But you just get your fingers under that bit of plastic. It's not really plastic. And out it comes. There's the squid's quill. So that's the squid's version of that cuttle bone, you know, the stuff you feed to your budgie or your parrot. Well, squid have that, and that gives their body rigidity. It looks just like plastic. It's not, of course. And then we can just give that a bit of a rinse, and all we're left with is a nice big bit of protein. So on the other side now, you've got these swimming fins, and that's attached to the skin. The moisture under the skin, if you throw that into some fat, into some hot oil, that's what's going to make it pop and snap and throw oil everywhere. So if you want to deep fry your squid, it's always best to take that skin off. So again, I just pop my finger, just pinch underneath those wings, then run my thumb up like that, and most of the skin comes off with those big. Whether we want to, why am I saying we? I don't really pull my weight when it comes to cooking around here because I'm not as good as Pascal, but if she wanted to cut that into strips and deep fry it, she could, because the skin's gone. But it's just as likely that it'd just be cut into ribbons and thrown into a laksa or a nice Goan style curry or something like that. And that's that done.
Oh, beautiful. Snapper.
I feel squinty.
That's what they love, the squid.
Alright, that's it for going east for the time being. So we've got 3 days of going south now, and we're breaking our days up into 40 miles a day. Just because we're going hard to weather and we feel like having a sleep during the night. 40 miles is still probably pretty significant when you got 15 to 20 on the nose, but we'll see how we go. As we're going south, got to keep an extra eye out for some reefs. Some of the areas we're going through, if you look on a marine chart here, the zone of confidence there is well, B2 and C, which means that some things might be up to half a K out of where they are on the chart, and there could be some depth anomalies as well that haven't been picked up. So on the chart they pretty much say you're on your own. Oh yeah, and you know another great thing? From our anchor windlass up on the deck, there's a tube running down to the gearbox, and then the engine drives that. Well, at the bottom of that tube there was a square plate that the gearbox bolts onto. That's corroded so much that it's sheared away. So I'm getting onto it by hand, pulling the anchor. So our enthusiasm for anchoring in anything over 10 metres is severely dampened now. but yeah, we'll see. We'll have to put Pascal on it. She's got the big muscles from grinding all that grain.
Well, it's day 6 since we left our friends at Badu Island, and we've been going pretty much head to weather. We took a day off the day before yesterday, but it's been pretty much on the go. And what we're mainly doing, if we have a look at our memory maps thing, is dodging reef. Alright, that's the main thing we're doing today. So we're going to be scooting down. There's a lot of reef to dodge today, so I'm going to have to stay on the ball. That's why I've had 3 cups of coffee. And we're going to try and get into Shelburne Bay, tack out of there, down in behind Cape Grenville, and again we can have another few days off before we hook out to the reef. But it's going pretty well, you know. Like yesterday we were holding 180 pretty well, and we averaged over the entire day about 4.4 knots. That's not bad going to weather. I think our max speed was like 7 knots. But today we should be able to do a bit better. I'm gonna hold off about 5 to 10 degrees further off the wind, and we should be able to, you know, hook along at about 6 knots for a fair bit of it. But I won't jinx us just yet. That wind might shift. But anyway, let's go and get wet. As the wind increased and the deck started to spend more time underwater, we felt it was time to reduce canvas and reef the headsail. A common misconception is that an unreefed sail will drive you faster and more powerfully, but the reality is a balanced boat sailing to her designed waterline will perform the best. This isn't a bad way to go to weather. Eating pistachios.
Making water.
Making water.
Woo! Not in the cockpit getting wet.
We're skirting along the edge of the shipping channel as well, so...
Keep an eye out for boats.
Well, the nice thing is that they won't come out of the shipping channel.
Yeah.
They're very predictable courses. Well, as you can see, we're doing really well, and I'm really pleased with our progress. We're tracking almost straight 180 degrees. We're getting good shelter from Shelburne Bay as we're coming in.
and it's not that well surveyed through here, so we are having to keep a bit of a lookout, but that's fine, you know, like we're getting, we've got 15 to 20 knots, it's good shelter. What's it saying? Our track average for today is 5.3 knots, you know, so close haul, that's a terrific speed. And we've only got 32 miles to do today. Yesterday we had a big 46 miler, and we knocked that out between 8 and 6, you know, it took 10 hours to do. So our track average yesterday was about 4.7, but we got in before nightfall and had a really good night's sleep, which is making a huge difference. So all in all, this bash down the Queensland coast is just going terrific. It's not, you know, it's a little bit of hard work. No one likes to go to weather, but it's not as bad as you would imagine. So the weather is forecast 15 to 20 knots and 1.5 metre seas. But we should escape the most of that just by hugging the coast and staying inside the 10 metre contour for the rest of the leg anyway. It's really pleasant. I could just about make a cup of tea, which is pretty good.
Our escort into Shelburne Bay was one of our favourites, the playful spinner dolphins. Shelburne Bay is a no-fishing zone, but we were happy to see plenty of activity as we entered Margaret Bay, and our dinner looked assured. Well, almost assured.
Normally we stop at one fish, but our half-fish policy is to try for another, and we were rewarded with this spotted mackerel. Our favourite way of shark fishing is with no hook.
Oh, got it?
It's good for us. Yeah, look at that.
Thank you for tuning in to Free Range Sailing. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, as it really helps get our video out to more viewers. If you like the chart images we used in this video, they were taken from our Memory Maps navigation software, and we'd like to thank the team at Memory Maps for allowing us to use them in our video. If you're interested in finding out more about their software, you can find a link to their website in the description of the video below. Also, we'd love to hear your feedback and questions, so head on over to the comments section and drop us a line.